So I guess as a brief navigational overview for people who are new, there are a couple ways that you can play around with the screen. I think the most important ones are that if you want to zoom in on your mouse pad, you're going to move your fingers downward, and to zoom out, you're going to do the opposite. It is the reverse. If you have a physical mouse, you'll scroll up to zoom in and scroll down to zoom out. To pan, which is to just move your screen without changing or rotating the orientation, you're going to hit the control key, right click, and drag around. And that's the same on mouse pad or with a mouse. And to rotate or to orbit your view, you're just going to right click and drag your mouse. And if it bothers you that that's really unstable, you can use your arrow keys. But anytime I want to get back to the base view, again, use this small little cube. And I'm going to pick trimetric because that is what I happen to like best, but there are no rules. Okay, so I'm going to mostly be playing around in one plane today. So because I don't like seeing the other ones, I'm going to make the other planes hidden. And to do that, if you don't want to see something, you can check out the features and parts bar over on the left, hover over it and click on the eye until it's slashed out. So this view cube in the top right corner is what you can use to click and snap to any particular view of your choice. And I'm just going to look at it square on the top view. All right, so I'm going to walk through it maybe a little bit more detail than intended because we have new people, but we're going to make a square. I want you to use the rectangle tool and I want you to use the dimensions to make it a square. So if you were here and you know what you did last week, go ahead and get started, and I'm just going to describe what we do. So to start making a sketch, you click sketch, and I only have one plane visible, so I'm going to hit that plane. To make the rectangle, I select this rectangle icon. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to make that my top left corner. I'm sorry, I'm left clicking, so that was a lie, and then left click again. For dimension, I hit D on my keyboard, or I can click this icon up here, and I'm going to make the top 4. And actually, I don't like the top being 4, that's too big. So let's do just, 2 centimeters all around. Okay. So if you can just give me a thumbs up in person or online when you've accomplished making a square, that would be great. Ah, yes. Tori asked about changing the preferred units. So to do that, there's 3 horizontal bars right next to the Onshape logo in the top left. You're going to select workspace units and default, let's do centimeters. So we like degrees, we won't change that, and we're not going to play with mass today. So I hit the green check to confirm. All right, how are we doing? Can I get a thumbs up if you're good to go to the next step? I need them a little bit higher if you're in person. Awesome. Okay, so today we venture into the 3D world. Yay. We're going to be playing extensively with this Extrude tool, which is this cube icon that you see in the toolbar. So I'm going to select Extrude and make sure that it should have these auto-selected, but it says solid and new. So it's going to ask us what face or region we want to extrude. We only have one option, so it's really easy right now. But select your square. And real fast, I'm going to rotate my view. Don't worry about doing that. I'm going to talk through some of the options that we have whenever we extrude. So to start, you can see right now that my arrow is pointed to the right. This is the way that my square is trying to grow. If I hit this arrow in the menu, it flips it the other direction. So you can click it if you don't trust me and you want to see it for yourself. That's cool. So that's one thing I wanted to show you. And right now it has us in the blind setting. And that means that we're going to tell Onshape exactly how high we want this cube, hopefully cube, to be. And so I can change this manually and should be pretty good. Notice that I clicked within the toolbox, but I did not click the green check yet. So that's how you can see the new changes reflected. Okay, we have a couple of other options here with blind. You can make it symmetric, which means that it's going to start from our sketch and divide my depth in half to go either direction. So right now that means I've got 2 centimeters on one side and 2 centimeters on the other. Another thing we can do is extrude our sketch from the opposite direction. And you notice that this does not have to be the same distance. We can again change it however we want to be. And we also have multiple functions. But for now, I'm just going to leave those alone. And we're just going to stick with a blind option. And let's say 4 centimeters. So click the green check to confirm that. And we should have something that looks rectangular prism-ish. All right. Does anyone have any questions before we go on? Cool. So now we're going to start with learning a little bit about reference geometry. And we're going to start with some lines and dots. So I'm going to select top view. Select whatever view you get where you're essentially looking at the top surface of your cube. So if that's the same for you, cool, but if not, just try and get it where we're looking at the same thing. So I'm going to select the top square face so that it turns orange and hit sketch. We're going to now use the construction tool that we used with the mirror tool last time. So the construction tool is the one that has the 2 arrows going between a straight line and a jagged line. So if you can left click on that so that it's blue, we're then going to click on our line tool, or you can use the L. So I'm going to kind of hover around until I get to where I think the center of this top line is. And you should see a square, an orange square appear. So I'm going to left click and drag it down until I get to the same square below. And then hit escape because I only want to make the 1 line. I'm now going to add a point. And again, just kind of hovering near where I think the middle is, eventually an orange square appears, and I will left click. And now I have a point. We will not be using these like immediately, but they'll be important for later. So if you want to make any lines with your future reference planes, you're going to want to make them in the construction mode. So the important takeaway from what we just did is that when we were in the sketch, we clicked on this construction icon before we drew our line. So all of those lines should be dotted, jagged, whatever you want to call them. Okay, so now's the part where I think this visual aid is going to be the most helpful thing for us. We're going to be creating a bunch of different planes on this rectangular prism. I'm going to call it a cube. I'm not sure if it's accurate, but I'm just going to do it. So that's the warning. So the plane icon basically looks like it's highlighted the first quadrant. That's how I'm going to describe it. So quick question in the chat. Sure, we're going to redo construction real fast just to make sure that's clear. So if you go back to our sketch, I'm going to draw a construction line horizontally. So first you hit the construction icon, again, 2 arrows, and if you hover over it, it'll tell you it's the construction tool as well. And after that, I select my line. So you can hover over the left-hand side where you think the center is until you see this orange square appear and drag it to the other side. And we know that the construction tool works because my line has this little dotted notation. Okay, was that helpful for you, Tori? Okay, so moving back to the planes. The first one we're going to look at is pretty simple. It's an offset plane. And all this requires is you to select a singular face of your part. And I'm going to pick the top face of my cube. So if you notice, as soon as I click it, we see a plane kind of suspended above it. And just like before with creating the 3D extrusion, there's this little arrow in the menu. And if I click it, it'll change directions. I want it to go above, so I'm going to leave it pointed up. And also, like with the extrude, it gives us the option to tell the plane how high we want it to be. I am really just doing this for demonstration, so I'm just going to leave this as is and let it be above. Okay, so that's the offset plane. Pretty simple. You're just kind of making a gap. It's perfectly parallel to whatever face you selected. Now, if we click on the drop-down menu, you see we have a couple of other options for the types of planes that we can make. The next one we're going to look at is plane point. And just like the name suggests, we are going to have to select both a plane and a point. And what this particular plane is going to do is it's going to run parallel to the plane that we select through a particular point. So from my view right now, I'm going to select this left-hand face as my plane, and I'm going to select this opposite, let's say, lower right-hand corner and hit check. So I'll rotate my view so it's pretty clear, but you can see that this is coinciding with the face immediately opposite of the left one that I chose. So again, the plane point, it's going to go through the point that you pick, and it's going to be parallel to the point that you select. So essentially, the difference between offset and plane point is that instead of just guessing like, oh, I want this to be 1.5 centimeters out, we're telling Onshape, I want it to run through whatever distance is exactly where this point is away. So those are similar, but a little bit different. Okay, I'm gonna do one more and then we'll stop and see if there are some questions. Line angle one is another fun one. This one's pretty easy. You only have to select an edge, essentially, or a line. And I'm going to select this top left one. I know my view's a little distorted, but you can see my screen. So once you've selected the edge, it asks you what angle you want to do. I'm going to select 45. Just don't pick like 90 or 0 because that's not helpful for you to see how this works. But once you've selected it, you can hit the green check and you can see this plane runs through the line that I selected and it's at a 45-degree angle to where it started. Okay. Any questions so far? Anything that I need to explain again? This goes both online and in person. All right, there are more planes. So the next option in our list is point normal. So for this one, we are going to be selecting a point and a line. And the plane that we create is going to be normal, that is perpendicular to the line that we select, and it's going to pass through the point that we select. So it's kind of similar to the plane point, but it's like the 90-degree angle version of it. And this is why I had us make the point earlier. So I want you to click on the point from our earlier sketch and then select this edge. So you can see it's already kind of shown me what it's going to look like. It's running smack dab through the center of my cube. and it's making a 90-degree angle with the line that I selected. So this is point normal, and I'm going to hit check to confirm it. Okay. The next one is 3-point. This is exactly like the name sounds, and you're going to select 3 points that you want your plane to run through. So I want you to see like how this can be utilized in a cool way. So I'm going to pick the upper right-hand corner of the top face, the lower left-hand corner of the top face, and then the lower right-hand corner of the bottom face. So I'll make some of my other planes invisible real fast so that you guys can see what it looks like a little better. But you can see I've got that triangular cross section where it's crossing with our cube. I'm going to hit check to confirm it. Some others up here. Okay, there's one more plane that I'm going to show us. I know there are a lot of them. And that is the mid plane. And essentially, I like to think of this one as kind of like the sandwich plane. You're going to pick 2 planes, and this is going to give you a plane smack in the middle where they intersect. So I think fun way I did this one before, going to do 2 planes that basically are adjacent to each other and form a 90-degree angle together. And I'll remove some of the other ones so that you can see what it did. So I picked 2 planes that are at a 90-degree angle, and so the plane that was created is running at a 45-degree angle. I'll do another one that's not quite so extreme. Did it do that? Okay. Okay, so that one was a little bit more straightforward, more the sandwich style, where I had like 2 pieces of bread, and bam, it gave me the filling for my sandwich. So for the most part, the names of these different planes are going to tell you what they do or what they require. I think the one that is the trickiest is the point normal. It's not normal to the point because I think, that's probably, I think, geometrically impossible, but it's normal to a line, not a plane. So the good news is if you do it wrong, it won't create a plane for you. So let me show you how you know that you've messed up, and we'll show you some of the troubleshooting methods. So say for instance, I tried to make a point normal, and I picked the side and I picked a point and I hit check. There's no new plane that appears, and you can see here on my rolling list of actions that I've done that plane 8 is highlighted in red, which means there's a problem. So if I hover my cursor on top of plane 8, it tells me that it did not regenerate properly. It cannot determine the rotation axis. So that tells me I need to go in and edit, and I need to try again. So if you hover here over entities, it tells you I require a point and an axis. So don't feel like you have to memorize these. It's definitely user-friendly setup. Or if you're curious what something does, typically if you hover over it, it'll tell you over time. So I'm going to delete my mistake. And to do that, you would just right click and hit delete. Okay. One cool thing I want to demonstrate real fast for us before we move into some other stuff with extrusion. Let me rotate it a little bit. So I don't know why it's not letting me drag it like I thought it could. Anyways, if you look in the top of the toolbar, there's this icon that kind of looks like a wave going through a cube, and it's the split tool. So essentially, this is what you would use if we wanted to cut apart into 2 different segments. And it requires a plane and a part. So if I click on it, it first asks me for what I want to split up. So I'll click on the cube, that's all I have. And to make sure I'm looking to click for the entity to split with, you actually need to left click on that. And then I'm going to pick this diagonal plane. Once I've done that, I can hit check. You'll notice that I have this dark line that's appeared where my plane was running through previously. And also on my parts list, I now have 2 parts. So if I hover over part 1 and hide it, you can see that now I have a triangular prism. Okay. So if you can give me a thumbs up if you've successfully split, that goes both online and in person, that'd be helpful. Is there any question that exists for any of the plane stuff that we just covered before we move on to extrusion? All right. And if you think of one later, I'll also answer questions at the end. So no worries. Okay. So if you were able to come to the first CAD workshop, you might remember we talked about the rollback bar a little bit. So if I want to see what it looked like before the split, I can drag this gray bar up 1 and suddenly my line is gone and I only have 1 part. So that's a refresh on what the rollback bar does. I'm actually going to delete the split because I don't really want it. And I need you to actually delete it too for what we are about to do. Okay. So something else that we talked about in the first workshop was the mirror tool in the sketch department. And that's precisely what it sounds like. It's kind of like a reflection that you've talked about in math class where you flip something over an axis. So if we're looking at this right now, you can tell we don't have an axis and we need to go create one. So let's make another sketch, same plane that you're currently operating in. And remember, we're using reference geometry here. So we go and we click our construction icon first before we pick our line. And I'm just going to be really particular and put it through my origin, but you do not have to do that. And once I'm done, I click the check mark. Okay, so just to confirm or to remind people or tell people who are new, to make just a single line, you're gonna hit the escape key on your keyboard after you successfully click. So Onshape is really similar to anything that you've used before. You can undo something by hitting Control-Z. You can get out of a tool by hitting the escape key. So those are things that I encourage you to utilize readily. Okay, so we have a very similar version of the mirror for 3D objects, and it looks quite similar. It's the same L's, but they're 3D. So if you click on it, it's going to kind of guide us through what to do. So first it asks us what we want to mirror. And the difference is that I've made a mistake and we didn't need a line after all that I realized, but we'll get to that. So first it asks us what we want to mirror. The answer is this cube. It asks us for a plane instead of a line. So what I'm going to do now is, if you're like me and you got rid of your view of your planes, bring them back. And you can see that this original plane, the right plane that exists, is exactly where I wanted my axis to be anyways. So I'm going to select this plane. And as soon as I do that, I see a cube appear on the other side. Let me know if that did not work for you. And the key difference here is that it's asking us for a plane, not a line. So I fell for my own trick. So I'm going to hit the check mark and I'm going to get rid of the ability to see that plane because it's not my favorite. Okay. Going to give a few more seconds for people to figure it out. Zoom people, if you have questions, drop them in the chat if you're stuck on this. But I am about to take a lap around the room, so I might not see it immediately. I think we have the same similar problem. Can you go back to your original sketch? Okay, I want you to click and drag a box around the entire thing. That works. Okay, just simply draw another rectangle, square out the side and go. Go to extrude one. Right click. Edit. Select these. The planes are on. So back to there. And you're gonna have to right click edit that one. And so now you have the part and to get and then select your plane there. Yep. Right. I think everyone has 2 cubes. And I don't see any questions in the chat. Okay. So that's the mirroring tool. I think real quick, I'm going to show us how we do some filleting. So this is something that's going to be pretty common practice because we don't like sharp edges when we're designing things. You can hurt people. Plastic is not as dangerous if you do something metal and design something with complete 90-degree angles. That's essentially like a razor blade you've made on the side, which is bad. So we're gonna take care to round off our edges. This is gonna be an important tool. And it looks like essentially just a rounded corner of the cube. So this is your fillet tool. There's debate over it's fillet or fillet. I'm just gonna say fillet, but I'm not the authority. So again, there's a key shortcut. You can hit Shift F if you want to, but I'm just gonna click on the icon. And to fillet an edge, you would click on the edge and it asks you for the radius. And that's essentially like what it's curving it to be. So for now, I kind of like it where it is. So I'm just gonna hit the check mark and you can see that it rounded for me. So that's an edge. If I wanted to do a whole face, I can show us the top here. And you'll notice that it tackled all of the edges of that face at once. So sometimes you have to be careful. Let me see if I can be really dramatic and get it to get mad at me and how I fillet it. If I tell it that I want to fillet it 3 centimeters, it's not even 3 centimeters, but okay, apparently I didn't do it enough, my bad. I'll just be really atrocious and say 13. It's gonna tell me, you can't do that, there's not enough space. And so that's why it's glowing red again. So it won't let you do things that aren't possible. I'm just gonna delete it. Okay, question in the chat. This recording will be posted to the Helping Hand YouTube channel. So it might have like a delay of a day or so before you get it uploaded. but we will be sending out a reminder to where you can access our YouTube channel in one of the weekly updates. But we recorded the first one, and this is the second one, so you should be able to access both of them, and they're running about, I think, like 30-40 minutes. Cool. Anyone have any questions about filleting? Anyone have any issues there? Nice. Okay. Sometimes you can fillet two sides together. So I can select two faces at once. And I'm going to hit not 3 centimeters, but I'll do 1 centimeter. And that did like the entire thing for me. Except the bottom. So there's efficient ways to fillet, so you don't have to click on each edge one at a time. I would recommend clicking on the faces, but sometimes you just have to do edges. Okay. I think a lot of people are wrapping up. So I guess something else that I wanted to show real fast that I didn't cover last week. If you can just click the top surface, we're going to look at one last way to use Extrude today. I guess technically 2 ways. So we're going to make a sketch on top of this face. I'm going to do a circle. It doesn't matter if it's perfectly centered or not. I just need a circle and hit check. So once we get a circle, we can go to our extrusion and hover our cursor above it so that it glows orange. Click it, it's selected. And earlier, you noticed when we were first building our cube, it was on new. Now it's on add. If I want to build on to what I've been developing over here, something, you know, I even have no idea what I'm building, then you would use the add tab. So this is going to form it to the part that we've already created. And we'll leave it as a blind extrude for now. And we're going to hit merge with all at the bottom. So add and merge. And then you hit select. So no new parts really appeared. That's from the mirroring, but you can tell that it's all one entity together. In contrast, if I click on another side and arbitrarily draw a circle, and I go to the extrude to select this one, the one last option we can look at in the drop-down menu is through all. And I can switch this over to the remove side. So I'm getting a spinning wheel, so it's taking a minute. But you notice now that my circle has cut through my square or my cube. So this is how we will make cuts. We will like form shapes. So we can divide something with planes in the split tool, or we can cut extrude / remove extrude. And you can either do through all, or you can say blind, I only want to do this 1.5 centimeters. And then you can tell when I rotate that it went some of the way through, but not all the way through. So I'm going to hit through all. And I don't think I changed it, but yeah. And you can see that I can see all the way through to the other side. Okay. So altogether, we use our extrude to add on to parts, create new parts, and cut existing parts. I'll get into a little bit more details about how we can add on to parts with some of the other things in the drop-down menu, because we've really only played around with blind and through all right now. But that'll be in one of our future workshops, so don't sweat it now. But that's really what I had for y'all today. So if you have any questions about what we covered either this week or last week, or just want me to go over some particular tool again, let me know, but otherwise, you are free to go.